Welcome back to the channel. I'm so excited to share this video with you. It's an actual inside behind the scenes look at what a virtual lesson with a D2 golfer and what that actually looks like. There's tons of good information shared, and I want to give a huge thank you and shout out to Maddie for allowing me to record this and share this with all of you. We start the video with a discussion about scoreboard watching and how that impacts the way you play. All right, enjoy. I think the question of whether you should know where you are or whether you should not know is a really good question. In my opinion, it's like, you hear like Tiger and people say, oh, I want to know where I am. I'm like, well, you're the greatest player that's ever played golf.
Yeah.
You have every shot. You're the best ever, in the pros. I'm like, well, of course you want to know because you're the best like that. But then I'm like, for most people, it's probably not a good idea to know. I mean, I don't know if you would have played any differently or any different outcome, but it's just that why add that extra layer of stress on? Listen to the coach for Ohio State, the guys coach, and he said, we asked a question about that, and he said, he said, well, they're going to do it. He said, the scoring's on their phone and they're going to look. And so you also need to be prepared for that. So it's almost like mentally you need to be prepared that to get in that situation. So actually knowing that score in that situation for you is probably a really good lesson. Because the next time this happens, even it's on a bigger stage or it's a US amateur, whatever it is, you'll be a little better prepared probably mentally to feel that.
Yeah.
So what is the feeling? What does it feel like? And the reason I'm asking too is because I played in the club championship. I don't remember how I felt last year. I know I was really nervous, but this time, like I haven't felt like that. I don't know if I put a lot of pressure on myself because I'm like, I'm gonna, because I lost my match last year. I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
gonna go, I'm gonna win. And so I had just maybe amped it up even more. But I mean, like I was checking my heart rate on my watch and I'm like,
Yeah.
I have, I'm in a cart, haven't really done a whole lot physically, and it's like 125 to 130. I'm like,
Yeah.
I probably should do some breathing and calm down, but it's just an interesting feeling. I feel like it's just right here, and it's just like how do you explain it?
I would say pretty much the same. Like I can feel my heart
Mm-hmm.
beating and it's just I don't know. I try to think cancel out every noise. I try to
Right.
focus on if there's birds, I try to
Yeah.
focus on the birds chirping
Oh,
and
that's a
just
good idea. Just something.
um
Yeah.
yeah. And just
Because your
kind of
head just, especially when you start playing poorly, which luckily on Sunday I did not, but it was, there was times where I was just like, I mean, I had the inner dialogue, if I could have had if I could have
yeah.
recorded my inner dialogue, I don't know. It was just like, all right, just stick in there, let this guy implode. I was just, and then
Yeah.
I did like some box breathing because I was like, I noticed my heart rate was just, and it was like kind of early on. And it was like, I had just, it's all what I've done to myself, right? Nothing really was happening in that, I was probably one up at the time. I was like, no big deal, but man, I just was like, how am I going to hit this next? But yeah, I did some box breathing, which you know what that is, the 4-4-4
Yeah.
breathing. Um, and it was actually hard to do it because you hold for 4 seconds, and I'm like, I don't know if I can hold for 4 seconds because I was just but it seemed to calm me down. But I think, I mean, and being in the situation is the best way to get through that, right?
hmm
And I think just focusing on your breath and maybe even just kind of like putting your hand in your heart, just be like, oh yeah, kind of get out of your head, get into your body to kind of feel it. Because you have to just feel that and then know
Yeah.
that the next time it'll be easier. That's a fun part. So what have you been working on? What do you think? What would you like to go over? Is there anything specific that you want to talk about? I mean, I've got some ideas of things to talk about, and
What ideas do you have?
I was just going to kind of figure out like what your practice schedule is, which we kind of talked about.
Mhm.
But that's just your required practice schedule. Like, do you have an idea of what you're going to do outside of that right now, or?
I think so. My roommate is on she's a golfer too,
Okay,
and we
good.
text back and forth quite often.
Awesome.
And I think I get compared to the course I play now, the
Yeah.
Ashland course is a
Yeah.
lot harder and I
Yeah.
mean so much more difficult. And I think I get more out of it, like going out on the course and okay, if I get under this tree, like hitting from different spots on the course, like just take
Sure.
5 balls and do
Sure.
that and put myself in hard situations so
Yeah.
that, my driver recently has not been the greatest. So to get
It
myself
happens.
in these situations.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I love that. I think there's always needs to be a good balance of playing and practicing. And I think
Mhm.
people can I don't think you can play too much as opposed to,
Yeah.
like a balance of practicing and playing. I don't think you can play too much because that's what you're actually doing. But I
Yeah.
think you can practice too much. Like people get kind of addicted to the range or addicted to a simulator and they're trying to hit their numbers on on the TrackMan or whatever it is. And I think that's something just to be aware of. But it
Yeah.
sounds like, I mean, if you got access to the course, which you do, then to me, that's the best thing to do. And, that's awesome that you've got your roommate that plays, so then you guys can just go out there and play a lot. But
Hmm.
I talked to you, I texted you about practicing the 4 iron punch shot or whatever. I don't know if you have a 4 iron in your bag or whatever,
Yeah.
5 iron punch shot. Um, and things like that. And it's kind of what you just talked about. Like, I feel like that is so important. And if you think about it though, if you play any course that has any trees at all, one shot at least out of every round is going to be a low punch shot, right?
Yeah.
And nobody practices that, I feel like,
Hmm.
And I remember back in the day, I would practice, like, even like on the range, I'd practice and I'm like, all right, I was trying to hit the shot, I'm like 6'4", right? So I was like, if I can hit a shot under 6 feet, and then I practice with like an 8 iron where I'm like, okay, you've got, the greens over here. It's a shorter shot because you don't necessarily want to go really low with a bullet with a
Hmm.
4 iron. I'm like, okay, can I hit an 8 iron under a 6 foot tree? And just kind of practicing those shots, but doing it on the course is even better. Actually,
Hmm.
that's the best way to do it because then you got to figure out like, okay, can I do it with a pitching wedge? How low can I hit a pitching wedge? Because that's going to bounce and stop sooner, right? And I
Hmm.
feel like those kind of shots um, really help, right? Because we're all going to have them. And if you have a little, I mean, you see the pros, right, pull off these crazy shots.
Hmm.
Now, some of the shots they've never practiced, right? Because they're in a spot where it's like, this is
Yeah.
ridiculous. But a lot of those they've probably played and they've
Hmm.
done it and they have an idea of what to do and how to do it. So it's much, much easier that way. And the whole idea is
Yeah.
if we can prepare and have some idea of what kind of shot or what kind of lie it is or whatever it is, or like, practicing a plugged bunker lie, things like that. Because when something like that happens in the round and you've got like a bad lie or a bad break or whatever, and it's like you don't know what to do, then it makes it even worse, if it makes sense. So I would just kind of, yeah, like you said, it's a great idea. Just like put yourself in bad spots and be like, okay, let me try to get, near the green from over here. So
Hmm. Yeah.
but also just kind of thinking through the process too. We played a pipestone the other day for a Miamisburg tournament with the girls, and I was helping Megan out on the one hole, and she was really upset, which made sense because it's like her last hole, and she hit it to the right, hit a great drive, but it was just right, and so she's got this big tree completely blocking out the green. And I was like, oh, so what are you thinking about doing here? And she's like, oh, she's like, well, I don't know. I've got to get on the green. I got to get, and I was like, well, I said, unfortunately, you're in a spot where you can't do that. Like, it's impossible. And like I always say, like, don't put your hero cape on, your
Yeah.
Superman cape or Wonder Woman cape to do this. Like, don't be the hero. Like, you literally can't go at the green. It's impossible. I was like, all right, so then what can you do? And so we found a
Hmm.
window, where I'm like, okay, if you hit this shot 80 or 90% of the time, you'll be up by the green. We're going to miss the tree because there's a tree and then there's water. There's a creek. So I'm like, if you go for that way, you're going to most likely, maybe 5% of the time get through it. But if not, you're hitting the tree and then most likely it's going to the creek. And
Yeah.
now you're taking a 7 probably. You know what I mean? You've taken par way out of and you've taken bogey out. So I was just like, hey, if you can put it over left of the green short, and maybe you can make, I said, that's the only way you're going to make a par of this hole. And worst case scenario, you're going to 2 putt and make a 5. And she ended up making a par, which was crazy. But it's just, I think it's that thought process of going through, okay, how can I eliminate a double or a triple? I guess it's also recognizing I'm in a bad spot. Like, okay, I've hit this in a bad spot.
Hmm.
Let's not make this so much worse.
Yeah.
And I'm in a bad spot. What's the way to make sure that I'm not going to take a big number? To me, that's like one of the biggest parts of course management. Is
Yeah,
that,
definitely.
especially like at your level, because every shot's going to count, right?
Mhm.
And you're not going to be super upset taking a bogey when you put yourself in a bad spot. But if you put a double in there, or, make a triple, now it's like, okay,
Yeah.
that's, what I mean? You'll look back at that at the end and be like, wow, that was really what, and that can also derail your round as well. So,
Yeah.
but I'm a big fan of you using a mirror or any kind of putting drills.
Mhm.
Do you have any of those that you go to putting drills you use or
Um, so
sorry,
I have a
business?
mirror. I haven't utilized it as much as I should.
Okay.
Um, but definitely a lot of drills I do is so like the practice green at my course,
Hmm.
it's pretty big
Okay.
and typically they have so here's the green. There's a hole here, and then a hole here.
Hmm.
And it's pretty sloped in the middle. So what
Yeah.
I'll do is I'll start here and then I'll go to this hole first, make like no more than a two putt, obviously,
Yeah. Yeah.
and go to the middle hole.
Hmm.
That's probably about, I'd say 40 feet. And
Hmm.
then go to the next hole. That's probably about 60 feet.
Okay.
So two putt all those, do that 3 times in a row.
Hmm.
Um, and that's typically like a post practice. Like I can't leave the course until I two putt
Right.
those
Right.
3 times in a row.
Okay.
Um,
And
Otherwise,
how are you physically, are you using one golf ball or are you doing multiple golf balls or how are you actually doing it?
yeah, just with one golf ball.
Okay, great. Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah,
And
sometimes that's really
then,
good practice. I like that.
yeah.
That's more of a playing practice type thing. I think that's great.
Hmm.
But what other drills and stuff do you do, putting
Another one I
wise?
probably do every time I'm at the course is like, here, my watch is the hole. I'll line up like 5 or 6 balls
Hmm.
in a row and just put those, and I'll kind of switch it up on the green. Like, oh, if this hole breaks left, breaks right, and try to
Hmm.
get that from a few different angles. And yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, there's two big things. I did a video about it before, but it's like actually with Megan, it's like there's basically two things that I like to see people do. I like to, and I do it myself as well, especially when I'm having trouble putting. It's like, okay, this is the two go-tos. So line and speed, so if you can use
Yeah.
the mirror
Yeah.
to play it, it's one of the drills that I think is extremely important, but it can be very boring. I would do it. I did it like over the winter and stuff. Or like I was watching football in my garage. I would do it a lot because then I just do it at commercials. But when you're
Hmm.
on the course, it's a little boring because you're just hitting putt, 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 putt. It's the same putt, and you're probably making most of them. So it's kind of like, which is great, but it's also a little boring. So
Yeah.
maybe split it up and do like maybe 25 at a time. Um, and then do some other drill and then go back and do like so maybe because I feel like if you can work on about 50 putts, and I'm talking like mirror straight putt, maybe 6 feet. I don't want it to be too much longer than that. Just six
Yeah.
footers, maybe 6 or 8 feet. Um, and the whole idea is, I mean, obviously you want to make them, but it's not even that. It's just you want to make sure the ball is rolling off the putter straight in the end over end and just get that. Because if you can get that down and then have the confidence when you're putting that no matter what, you're going to start it on the right line, then all you
Mhm.
have to do is worry about the speed and get the line right. And
Yeah.
other things. So I like people to do that. And then I like to do speed drills. And there's multiple different speed drills. You can
Mhm.
come up with whatever, but as long as you're doing some kind of speed drill, whether it's some like if you're preparing to play in a tournament, I don't like you doing a speed drill to an actual hole,
Mhm.
because you're not going to make those putts. And then your subconscious mind's like, oh, we haven't made these putts. And so you're not really used to seeing putts going in. And
Mhm.
when you really play, you could make some of those longer putts, but I feel like when you see it not going in, it just kind of, so I always putt to something separate, whether you put a ball marker down or don't you have like one of those hole things to put on the green, or I don't know, you have those, something like that.
Mhm.
Always putt to something different.
Okay.
Also, it's nice because if it's not a hole, then you can see how far it went past, because you could make one with some really good speed on it when really you didn't do a good job of your speed. Like you hit it a little too hard and maybe
Mhm.
you would have been 4 feet past or whatever. And when really you wanted it to be within a couple feet. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, and there's multiple different kinds of putting drills. There's the ones where they set up the tees. If you've seen that, where it's
Mhm.
like, okay, you got to leave it within the two tees, and then you go back and leave it within the tees. So there's multiple things like that. So I like to balance those. again, those can be a little tedious and a little boring, but I like to balance that with, like you said, with a two-putt drill, and I actually do that, or even do like an up and down type of drill where you're like, okay, I'm going to chip 3 balls and
Yeah.
see if I can get them up and down and score and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
else? What else are you working on?
Um, Definitely working on consistency over distance. Yesterday I've spent probably maybe an hour, 2 hours on the range. Just okay, I'm going to focus on like my tempo, make like more mechanics than anything.
Okay,
Um, I also kind of want to get your opinion on this.
sure.
So the clubs I have, I like them, but
Mhm.
I've had them since I got them like going into my junior year,
Okay.
this right before. Have you heard of Club Champion?
That's funny you said I just met with them on Friday. So I'm going to be one
Wait,
of their.
so if I buy clubs through them, you can get a commission?
Yeah, give my name and you'll get it. Yeah, as a
Is
referral.
the
In my mind, I'm like, you need to, if you're going to get club fitted, you need to go to somebody that does club fitting. You don't want to go to the Titleist, and I love Titleist, is my favorite brand. You don't want to go to the Titleist place to have them fit you because they're going to fit you into a Titleist. And maybe that's not the best club for you, you know?
Yeah.
So they go and they have every club. And most importantly, they have every shaft. And so, because
Hmm.
especially if you're getting fitted for a drive or whatever, like the shaft is, it's the engine of the car, right?
Yeah.
So I think to me, it's like perfect because they can go through, any kind of brand, any kind of club and really find what actually fits your swing, especially since you've got your swing down and it's not like you're making any major changes, especially now. I think
Hmm.
that might be pretty helpful.
Yeah.
I also like believe in it myself. Like I really think it's a very important thing to do,
Hmm.
especially somebody like at your level or somebody that's trying to be, somebody's that's a golf fanatic. I really think it's like that's the next step to really get dialed in. And people with their drivers, I mean, especially driver, like I don't know about you necessarily. I mean, you're pretty fit with driver, maybe not. I don't know, but I like just the like, do you understand the numbers like if you're hitting your driver as far as the spin rate and all those things? Um, kind
Yes
of.
and no. I
Okay,
feel
so
I need to learn about it more for
okay,
sure.
it's confusing.
Yeah.
And I like even like with TrackMan, there's a lot of numbers, and I really just focus on a couple of, the launch angle is very important, and then the spin
Hmm.
rate is very important. And actually, I've been really focusing a lot more on spin rate, because I that mainly because that's one of the things that I actually understand
Yeah.
really well. But like with driver, depending on your club head speed, so like for me with my driver, I need to have my spin rate around 2,500 to 3,000 RPM.
Okay.
Because if not, it's going too high, and then it's getting no roll and it's stopping, right? And it's obviously not going as far. Um, and also you don't want it any lower than that because then it doesn't go in the air, it'll drop out of the sky. So like, Bryson's club head speed's outrageous, so he needs it like 1,500 because he hits it so hard that if
Hmm.
he gets any more spin, it'll balloon up and not go as far. Um, but for you, it's probably somewhere around 3,000-ish.
Hmm.
Somebody would know, obviously a club fitter would know very easily.
Yeah.
But that's an interesting number to see because it's not only like the distance, like the carry distance, but it's how you get the ground, like the ground distance, basically. I think that's what they call it. Because you could get too much backspin, and even if you have a nice trajectory, it'll just kind of sit. Um, Even if it's not, even if the ground's kind of hard, it'll just sit. But if you can get that perfect, and it, like when you hit that one shot where it's just like it goes right through the air, and you're like, this wind's not even affecting it hardly, and then it hits and just goes, like that's the dialing in of it that
Hmm.
makes the big difference. So, and of course, there's other factors to keep it, on the course or on the
Yeah.
planet. That's what I just like to say too. But I
So
think it's a good
now
idea.
that I'm like at the point where I know like I'm gonna be starting golf season
Yeah.
before I get fitted,
Hmm.
and I'll probably I don't know, my coach could make a factor in this too, but
Yeah.
should I wait until this season is over or do I go mid-season like if I have a Saturday could
Hmm.
go up there or do I wait until like and then have
So
my comeback era in the spring season.
yeah, it's a great question. Great question. I it kind of depends because it's going to be your confidence level in
Mhm,
the new clubs. That's the other because you're not since you're not making any swing changes. Because if people I don't like to make swing changes in the season. Very small tweaks, little things. But you don't want to make a grip change or anything crazy like that when you're in the season because it'll take you too long to get the confidence in that you need to play at the level you're playing. Because I always tell
mhm,
people like when I'm giving lessons, especially to beginners, I'm like, all right, so there's me figuring out what we need to work on your swing, you doing that, me able to tell you how to do that, you doing it correctly in front of me, um, then you doing it correctly when I'm not there, then you doing that correctly when you're on the course, then you doing that correctly when you're under pressure, then you doing that in a club championship or tournament. And so since you'll be playing in tournaments, it will show any of your weaknesses and your lack of confidence on anything. And so
mhm,
it could actually help though. Again, because we're not making a swing change, it might actually be helpful because if you go in there and let's just say you get fitted for the driver and you're just like, I have so much, I mean, that's what Bryson's been talking about that lately, right? Or he's just like, they're like, well, what's different? He said, I just have so much confidence in my equipment, you know,
mhm.
like I know that it's going to do what I need it to do. So it might even help, honestly. Um,
Yeah.
because because they're going to dial it in to something to specifically fit your exact swing. So I mean, I can't think of an instance where that would be. I mean, it takes you a minute to get used to them, I guess.
Mhm.
But if they've dialed it into your swing, it shouldn't take too long. You know what I mean? Like it
Yeah.
should be better than what you're playing now. So mini drivers kind of like the new thing, right? Have you
Mhm.
looked into that at all, or would it even
I haven't really, I think I might have read like one article about
yeah.
him, but I know like Rory, didn't he switch to one for a little
Yeah,
bit?
there's quite
And
a few pros doing it. Scott Fawcett, which is the guy that does the decade guy. So he's a big proponent of it. So his deal is, and the way he likes it, so he mostly likes people to hit a fade off the tee, um,
Mhm,
which is kind of what you do. So you hit a nice big fade off the tee, and then just hit that every time. That doesn't matter what you're going. But there are instances where you need to hit a draw. And so what he likes to do, and he has like the scientific proof to show that
mhm,
hitting a driver, hitting a fade is easier and whatever. It's fine. But the idea is you get the mini driver, which would replace the 3 wood, and you can still hit it off the deck if you need to, off the fairway, because it's smaller. But the idea is it would help you off the tee so that you could actually go the other direction. So you could actually hit a draw off the
interesting.
tee
Okay.
with the mini driver, which is basically just like a hyped up, jacked up 3 wood.
Yeah.
That way, in the circumstances where you have to get around a corner or whatever it is, you can have the confidence to do that. I like that. I like that approach for multiple reasons. Because I feel like, and he talks about this too, but like the double cross is the big problem. So a double cross with your driver is the big thing. Like, so if you're just hitting big fades, maybe slight, whatever, to me, that's not as big of a problem as all of a sudden you're hitting it, the other direction.
Yeah.
Um, because then you have nowhere it's going. So in my opinion, it's like you can't, and even with the mental part of it, where it's just like, okay, every time I pull the driver, I'm either hitting it straight or a little bit to the right. Awesome. You just have that confidence, do that every time. And then like I don't ever want to step up with my driver and think, oh, really, I want to get around the corner to the left. Because I feel like that just opens you up for stuff. And then the double cross is such a bad miss
Mhm.
that if you can have a mini driver, or even, I mean, if you're 3 wood, if you can draw your 3 wood, it's the same idea. It just goes farther. Um,
Okay.
and that's kind of what I do. Like I don't hit my 3 wood a ton off the
Mhm.
tee, but if I do, I know it's going to be a draw most likely. And I don't want to hit a draw with my driver if I can help it. So it's that kind of thing. So it depends. I mean, it might, it might also create a gap in your bag where you have between that and a hybrid. So it depends. It's just something to think about.
Yeah, for sure.
I want one because I barely use my 3 wood, and I'm like, I could use that, and then I could hit a draw off the tee, and then, I don't know. Because there's also like playing at Eaton, there's those two short par fours, and once I get my swing speed up a little more, um, I I won't be able to hit driver on either of those par fours, and so that would be kind of nice to have a mini driver. So I don't know.
Yeah, for
It's also
sure.
just fun if you can buy a better game, right?
Yeah, no kidding.
For
Oh, yeah.
sure. So what else? What else you got going on? What else can I help you with?
No.
So as far as your mental preparation, obviously we went over. I feel like you have a really good, like your pre-shot routine is great, and that's super important. I feel like you've got a good target focus. I feel like you've got the turn and burn. I feel like all of those things. I think it's good. Obviously, your swing looks good, but I mean, as far as the mental standpoint, I feel like that part of it's in really good shape. It'll be just kind of getting used to. Um, Yeah, like I was talking to JJ the other night about, being in college. I was like, well, it'll be interesting to see how nervous you are at the first tournament. Um,
Hmm.
because you probably haven't been super nervous except for that, at sectionals, like the whole
Yeah.
year, because you're just like, well, I've done this in my fourth year. I played in most of these tournaments again. I'm playing great. And, so your nervous factor was probably a lot lower, stress and nerves, where this is going to be like, oh, now you're new.
Hmm.
Now you're like, oh, and then you have the pressure, like, oh, I got to stay on the team, and all those things that come with it, will be
Yeah.
different. So I feel like it'll be kind of an adjustment there. Um,
Hmm.
and then honestly, it's course management is just what it is. And it's also it's playing your game on that day. I
Hmm.
talked to Megan about this the other day. Uh, she's just like, she normally hits a pretty straight drive or maybe a draw, and she just was hitting. She's like, I'm hitting a fade. I just can't do it. And I was like, that is the game you have today. That is the game. If you're hitting a fade with your driver and you do 3 or 4 holes in a row, I'm like, that's just what you got. I'm like, so it's not, how do I change this back to hitting my normal shape or whatever. It's how do I take this and shoot the best score? So it's taking a round that could be a 78 and turning that into a 74. Like it's more actually a better way to explain it. It's like, okay, so today you have your game today is an 80. Like that's the best you can possibly shoot. Today is an 80. That's just all you have, or a 75, whatever it is. You don't have, an even par round today. It's not there. But how do you shoot 75 instead of 82? Like, or how do you shoot 80 today? This is all I got is 80. That's the best I can do. How do you shoot 80 instead of 82? Like that's where are those few strokes, and it's just all in the course management and the decision making as you go through. And the Decade app will help a ton with that, which is great
Hmm.
because it kind of eliminates a lot of pin seeking when you don't need to do it and things like that. But yeah, it's just the trouble shots. It's like, okay, I'm in trouble. Let's get out of trouble. Let's do that the most effective way. Am I 80 or 90% sure I can pull a shot off? Then go for it. If not, moving on. I think that's because that's really what it's going to be, especially at your level, because you have a lot, your game's good, or they wouldn't have put you on the team. So you have to remember that. But and then it's just kind of working through your mental part of, your preparation for each round.
Hmm.
I'm sure your coach will probably have, I mean, I guess I'm not sure. Each coach is different, but maybe have a routine and stuff. Um, that you do before. Ideally, try to do the exact same thing before everything. As an example, I don't have like a pre-tournament routine because I don't haven't played in many tournaments.
Yeah.
And so on Saturday, I was like, all right, I'm gonna come to the course and I'm gonna do the exact same thing that I'm gonna do on Sunday. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna hit 16 balls on the range. I'm gonna do this, and it's a little, you don't want it to be super rigid. Because I'm like, all right, I'm gonna hit like 3 to 5 drives. If I hit a couple good ones, I'm like, that's fine, but if you need to hit a couple more, it's fine.
Yeah.
Not making it super rigid, but having it the same, I'm gonna spend this much time putting, I'm gonna do this putting drill. But anyway, so I went through all
Yeah.
that routine. And then the great thing is, and then on Sunday, I went to go do the same thing. And I'm like, this feels so different. I'm like, my swing is flat. My game is, it's like, so it's interesting.
Yeah.
At least you can kind of, once you've done that multiple times, it'll be a lot easier. So, but it's just kind of funny but at least I was like, I had something to do. I had something to fill my time and I had something to fill my mind. So I knew
Hmm.
that I'm preparing correctly. It wasn't in the back of my head like, oh, maybe I should hit 5 or 6 more putts, or maybe I should hit another whatever. if I have my routine down, then I know that I have prepared the best I can, and now it's
Mhm.
just time to go out and play golf. So,
Yeah.
and yeah, I don't know, and it could be even like the playlist that you have, that you're listening to as you're warming up, like make that the same, you know, um, because you'll be going to different places, but ideally it'll be similar time frame, like your tee times will be approximately whatever, and you'll have to warm up, an hour before or whatever, and just try to go through the same routines. And it's because it's just like your pre-shot routine, and the best you can do the same as your pre-shot routine is exactly the same each time. It just makes it easier and easier and easier. So
Yeah.
hope it helps a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
So
For sure.
yeah, because it's a different beast, You're also what will be an interesting switch for you too is so you are so in high school, I'm assuming you were like the number one player on your team, right? So you're
Yeah.
like the number one player on your team, probably number one player, like so you were the best, almost the best in the area, and like you almost went to state. And so like you were really, really good compared to who you were playing most of the time.
Mhm.
Now it's not going to be that. And you're going to be back at the bottom like you're a freshman in high school and trying to work your way back up again and trying to
Yeah.
get the confidence that like to stick, what's the easiest way to say this? So having the confidence to stick with your game the way you play instead of
Mhm.
seeing this amazing girl over here, that's just hits it farther than you. Maybe I should do this, and not chasing somebody else's game, but
Mhm.
sticking with what you do, knowing that you just need to work on your game. So,
Yeah.
because it's easy to get caught up when you see like, oh my gosh, this girl can hit it farther than me or whatever she does better than you, and then trying to chase that instead of saying, hey, I'm good with what I do. I just need to work on what I'm doing.
Mhm.
So, something to think about as
Yeah,
well.
for sure.
But yeah, it'll be interesting. It's fun. It's great to follow your journey. So this will be good to go.
Thank you so
I'm
much. Yeah.
excited. So, and of course, if you need any help at any time, you need to do Zoom or whatever in the season, just let me know.
I
Um,
definitely will. So,
Sure, because
um,
you'll be getting it. You'll be going against different things
yeah.
that you're not used to, and
Yeah.
maybe I can help you out with some of that stuff too. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's just nice to talk about it with someone, who understands like kind of the depths of it versus my mom who is, "Oh,
Right,
good
right,
shot," like
yeah.
so
It
I
is
really appreciate
interesting, and also I love doing this. This is like I've been looking forward to this. Like this is fun. Like I've got some stuff to do. I got a lesson on Friday I'm looking forward to, and it's just like I really love doing this too. So it's fun. It's
Yeah.
fun to follow your journey and then see if I can help you. And I was really, I felt really excited. This was a couple weeks ago. So there's a kid that I've been teaching in that's going to Greenville. So he's a freshman, good
Mhm.
kid, Hayden. And so he tried out for the team, and I was like, oh, he's going to make the team for sure, but probably I don't hopefully make varsity. And so he was 24 kids. He had shot 83 the first day. It was the lowest score out of everybody that tried out the first day as a freshman. And then the
Mhm.
second day he shot 85. It was the second lowest score. So he made like varsity and he was going to be like, it was like, it was pretty impressive. His dad was like, that was pretty. So it was kind of fun. And then
Oh my
yeah, so I was excited. I was like, oh my gosh, that's so good. I was like, so glad I
god.
can do it. So it was just super cool. And then there's another girl that was, she's 14, so she's like eighth grade. So she was doing the trials for middle school, and so she she had what did she do? She shot, I forget exactly what she shot, but it was like 11 strokes better than the other girls she was playing against, and so I was like, oh, cool. So it's kind of fun. That's yeah.
Yeah.
Preparing yourself mentally, I think, is huge. I mean, that's when you're at your level, that's really where it's at. They say golf is 90% mental, and I think um, the only time I disagree with that, even though I'm a mental performance coach, is when you get started, it's kind of physical. Like if you can't hit the ball, it doesn't really matter if you're doing a pre-shot routine or what I mean. It does, but it does. But once you get to
Yeah.
your level and up above, it really is how you're thinking, what the processes is, or what the processes are, and how you're doing that. So the best you can do is to focus on the process and not the outcome. That sounds cliche, but if you can kind of do that, and even like I said, like your routines, listening to the same playlist and all that stuff. I mean, that's what all the best athletes do, right? Like
Mhm.
LeBron sitting there listening to probably the exact same thing. Olympic athletes, it's very interesting. I don't know if you watch any of the Olympics, but
Mhm.
what they go through to prepare for, sometimes it's like a minute worth of work, or sometimes it's less.
Yeah.
And they are so regimented, and exactly what they do is exactly the same. Like it's
Crazy.
next level, right? And
Yeah.
amazing. And I feel like that's just so important. But yeah, if you stick with that, you'll do fine. So
Thanks. Yeah.
that's cool. Do you know when your first tournament or matches or anything, or?
It's oh my gosh, so many people have asked me this, and I think I keep
Mhm.
giving them the wrong date. It's the first or second weekend in September.
Okay, cool. So you've got some time to get prepared and get settled into.
Mhm.
Plus, you're going to college too, so like you've got that going on and trying to find your
Yeah.
classes, all that fun stuff too. So
All at once, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
So,
that's cool. It's exciting. That's fun. Also
yeah,
enjoy it. Have fun. Enjoy this. This is you're only gonna be a freshman in college one time, so this will
true.
be this will be fun. Trying to put too much pressure on yourself. So
Thank you. Thank you.
cool, cool. Yeah, yeah. You got
Yeah,
anything else you need help with, or any other questions or whatever?
I think
Oh,
that's about it for today, at least. I'm sure
cool,
I'll
cool, cool.
John, help, but,
Yeah, no, totally fine. Yeah, or text me, whatever, email, whatever you
yeah,
can do. It's fine. I'll help you as best I can. So,
thank you.
and yeah,
Thank
let me
you
know when
very
you.
much for today too. I really, really appreciate it.
Yes, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. So, yeah, just let me know how I can help.
Alrighty,
All
will
right.
do.
Have a
Well,
good
have a
one.
good one.
All right.
Bye.
All right. Bye.